Okay. Miles Wiley Albright, December 6th, 2021, Bible in the Bar, Hobbs Island Road, Huntsville, Alabama. Let's pray. Father, we love you and we bless you and we trust you. Teach us, we pray, and make us teachers. Please, Lord, help us in Jesus' name. Okay. All right. I think I've said before, I know I've said before that I believe the Lord has shown me that I've been swallowed by a whale, and that for you to understand what I teach, you have to swallow a whale. You have to already understand some stuff. And so you're going to hear a concept here that I've taught many times before, and but I got to review this, something called the hardening of blessing. To understand this judgment of Dan, you need to understand the hardening of blessing. The hardening of blessing is something the Lord showed me in April of 1994, that Pharaoh, God hardened, but Scripture says God hardened Pharaoh's heart, but didn't mean he hypnotized him. What that meant is that Pharaoh was going to say, take away the plague, and I'll let the people go. And God takes away the plague, and Pharaoh says, I'm not going to let the people go. He thinks he's controlling God and manipulating God. And then when God sends another plague and he says it again, he don't think it'll work. I don't think he thinks it'll work, but it does. And God takes away the plague again. And so Pharaoh thinks, I'm in the driver's seat. I'm controlling Jehovah. I'm a lot smarter than he is. So that happens time and time again until he plays one card too many, and he believes that he can control, since he can control Jehovah, Jehovah has divided the Red Sea, he's going to walk right in there because he's got control of Jehovah, right? Well, he drowns. Wrong. Same thing happened with the children of Israel right away. 3 days after they crossed the Red Sea, they came across some bitter water, and they were out of water. They needed some water. They had found some bitter water. They complained bitterly, and God made the water sweet while they're complaining. That was the beginning of the end. That's chapter 15 of Exodus. Chapter 16, they complain preemptively, and they say, hey, we haven't got anything to eat. Well, they do. They've got tons of livestock. And so God sends them manna and quail. And they think, well, that worked good. It hardens their heart. They complain. They didn't just pray. They complained for food. And God gave them manna and quail and Sabbath. And the third time, chapter 17 of Exodus, they complain because they're out of water and even threaten to kill Moses. And the Lord sends a river of water out of a rock and blesses them with a river of water. Only thing was they got it by bitter complaining. And David, who lived 500 years later, looked back at Massa Meribah, where the river of water came out of the rock. It's called Massa Meribah, chapter 17, Exodus. David looks back at that and says that the Holy Spirit says after that they would never enter his rest. I mean, it's already history in David's time. But he's speaking by the Spirit, prophesying backwards of what happened back then, because they had jacked God around, they thought, and controlled God, they thought, and wanted what God had more than they wanted God, more than wanted intimacy with God. And it got what they want. In a sense, it's greed. It's the love of stuff. Because that, he said that they would never enter his rest. And that's talking about never enter Canaan, but it's also something more than that. It's something about they'll never enter my marriage rest. Manua was the word. It's not Sabbath, which is a short time. It's a permanent rest. They'll never enter my permanent rest. Manua. And so that's the concept of the hardening of blessing. Now you see it throughout the Bible. If you'll learn that, if you'll make that part, I think these glasses are like a part of me. In my current state of healing, or not somewhat lack thereof, my eyes are not perfect, So these glasses are with me anytime I'm awake. If you'll make that like a pair of glasses, you'll see a lot of places in the Bible where that truth, that concept will make stuff make sense. John 5 in particular. But before we start, where we're going to start after this start, look at Genesis 49 and verse 16. Very interesting here. There's two verses where Jacob, who's about to die, is prophesying over his 12 sons and really over his sons and their posterity, what their tribes will be. It's not just the boys themselves, so much as it is the tribes that will come from them, which is a pretty amazing thing if you think about it. Verse 16, two verses about Dan, and then a mysterious verse, verse 18. And we've mentioned earlier that from chapter 40 through chapter 50, 11 chapters of Genesis, you never see the word Yahweh except in this one verse. And it is pregnant with meaning. Verse 18 is. But before 18, looking at 16 and 17, Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. King James, New American Standard says, Dan will judge Israel. The word is Dain. Dan. It's where the name Dan comes from. It's D-I-Y-N. He will judge D-I-Y-N in English letters. He will judge Israel as one of the tribes. So there's a pun there on his name. Dan will be a serpent by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heel so that its rider tumbles backwards. Without any doubt, there's a very negative connotation, at least to the last part. Anybody can see that. Some have even said that Dan might be the progenitor of the Antichrist. And after that heavy, heavy prophecy there, that Dan is a snake that bites the horse's heels and its rider tumbled backward, then it says, this real short little verse, I look for your Yeshua, O Yahweh. That's pregnant with meaning. I look for your deliverance, O Yahweh, and the word deliverance is Yeshua. Think about that. It's going to take Jesus to fix this thing. O Yahweh. Okay. All right. But now it seems like that verse 17 is pretty negative about a serpent and a viper. But certainly chapter 16 is taking a new meaning for me. Dan will judge his people as one of the tribes. I think we're going to see that is referring to, partly in a very superficial way, that's referring to Samson, who was from the tribe of Dan, who was the last judge in the book of Judges. He had lived a very negative life. And we'll get to that. But what I believe the Lord is saying here is what happens to Samson is going to harden a lot of hearts. Maybe even to this day, if you read about Samson leaving the house of a whore and the Holy Spirit coming on him, and he picks up a gate that probably weighs a ton or 2 tons and carries it 20 miles off to a hilltop. Well, what kind of God is that, you know? He's blessing this guy. That could cause you to either be skeptical of the Bible or to think, well, what's going on here? But be careful and remember the hardening of blessing, and that God's blessing is his judgment. Paul said, I make much of my ministry, but if you don't really understand the hardening of blessing, there's some stuff in the Bible that's just going to be, you're not going to see it without understanding that concept. And that's there. That's there. It's in the Word. Now let's drop back to Genesis 30 and the conception of Dan. Genesis 30. Okay, so chapter 29, Leah and Rachel are married to Jacob. Contest is beginning on who they have the most babies, who can conceive and have the most babies. Leah starts spitting them out like watermelon seed. She goes bang, 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 has 4 sons: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. And then it says in the last verse of chapter 29, so then she stopped having children. Then Rachel, verse 1 of chapter 30. Then Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. And so she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Now, what that's saying is that she wants a child more than she wants her own life. And it's ironic, her second child she actually has takes her life. But she's wanting the child more than she's wanting the Lord. Now, hear me carefully. This is the woman who has the teraphim, who has the household gods. We know she worships the household gods because when they flee from Laban, in the next chapter, her father, when they flee from her father, Jacob waits until Laban's slightly out of town, and she goes and steals her father's household gods, teraphim. And she's an idol worshiper. And those gods are referred to as gods in your text there. Her father, when he catches up with her husband, he doesn't know that she stole them. And he says, I was going to clean your clock, but an angel run into me and told me I was dead meat if I did. And he said, "But why did you steal my gods?" Well, Jacob don't know what he's talking about. And just understand that he says, "Why did you steal my Elohim?" It's the most common word, for God. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. But it's a generic word. It's God, capital, the God. But really, it's God who he is. His name is Yahweh. God's who he is. Just like I'm a man and my name is Miles. Okay. Most of the time in the Bible, when it says Elohim, that's God, the God of the Bible. But when Laban says, "Why did you steal my gods?" he's talking about the teraphim. Y'all, I looked this up, and somebody else also found the same thing. It's possible the teraphim was an embalmed taxidermy version of a skull, human skull. These were human skulls, even baby human skulls. It's possible that that's what the teraphim were. And it's possible that if they were baby skulls, may have been associated with child sacrifice. That's a possibility. In any case, they're pretty horrible things. And so when you got to understand, when Rachel says God, she's saying Elohim. So she may be talking about Jehovah, but I think much more likely she's referring to the same thing that her father refers to when he says gods. Just because it says God singular, it's still Elohim, which is really a plural word. Okay, you ready? Get ready for this, y'all. This is going to be heavy. Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God?" Again, that's Elohim, "who has kept you from having children?" And he's referring to the God of his fathers, Jehovah. Then she said, "Here is Bilhah, my maidservant, sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and that through her I can build up a family. That's what Sarah did. Okay, that's how Ishmael got here, and that has not been a good thing. But y'all, not only do we have to kind of understand tonight hardening a blessing, you have to understand we're going to be baptized into the sovereignty and free of God and the free will of man being in some sense the same thing. That God, even when you're moving in free will, still God's in control, and you can, in a sense, he's doing it even if you're doing it. Remember that. For example, I think a lot of us have thought about this. When a child is conceived by rape, when a child is conceived by incest rape, and sometimes it's the same thing. That child, every child is a gift of God. Every child is a gift of God. Conception is a miracle, and it cannot happen without the grace of God. And yet, if I can speak in simple human speak, there are some conceptions that weren't supposed to happen. Now, I don't just mean somebody was married and they forgot to use birth control or whatever. I'm not talking about that, and I'm not even just talking about children that are conceived out of wedlock. But there are certainly children that happened because of a vicious rape. Sometimes even a rape of a child that's related to you, and it's incest. And maybe it's even a child that's going to have physical problems because of the incest. But God is still sovereign over that, and yet it wasn't supposed to happen. And the person who committed the rape or this sexual thing that happened wasn't supposed to happen. There is a human element in that, and there is a difference. Now, I'm not saying that somebody that was conceived out of wedlock is cursed. I'm not saying somebody that's conceived by rape is cursed, or somebody that was conceived by incest is cursed. I promise you this, every one of us, okay, I wouldn't be here except for every person in my ancestry. I have genes from every person in my ancestry all the way back to Adam. And I'm going to tell you what, you don't have to go back many generations you're talking about hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions. In my thousands, maybe even just in my hundreds, I assure you that one of my forebears, man or woman, was conceived by rape, was conceived by out of wedlock, was conceived by incest. We all have got it in us. So what I'm saying is, God is dealing with the cards we give him, and yet he's sovereign over the cards that we give him. That's heavy, but it's real. And we're going to actually have our faces thrust into this reality as we read this right here, because Sarah was not supposed to cause Ishmael to be conceived, but it happened, and God blessed Ishmael. But Ishmael's also been a problem. Okay, I'll know that. Think about this. So she sends in Bilhah into her husband's bed. In verse 4, so she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. And then Rachel, by the way, that's probably pronounced Rachel, as in Raquel Welch, with that sound. Rachel said, God has vindicated me. Y'all get this. This is really important. God has vindicated me. The word there is judged or deigned. God has deigned me. God has judged me. And NIV translates it vindicated, because that's what she means. She means that God has judged on my behalf and listened to me and gave me this son. And I believe that that's wrong. I believe that that's a false prophecy. I believe you're going to see several false prophecies on this page, in this early part of this chapter. You're going to see a false prophet, and you're going to see other false prophecies in Dan because of how Dan is conceived, in a sense. It's like this thing of false prophecy of prophesying after your lust, prophesying after out of your own opinion. You're going to see that echoes in the history of Dan. And when you prophesy and say God's doing this, when he wasn't doing it, it was you doing it. Yeah, there's no such thing as a conception that God didn't allow or cause. But, you know, nobody can die without God too, but at the same time, you can commit murder. And you can bring a child into existence that wasn't supposed to be there, but God knew they were going to be there. I know, yeah, it's the hugest thing of all, trying to get free will and predestination, sovereignty in your head at the same time, but you need to do that. You need to just believe it. But she says, God has judged me, blessed, and decided to bless me, but really she doesn't know what she's saying. I believe she's saying he's judged me and it ain't going to be good. She don't mean to say that, but as far as God's concerned, that's what's being said. He has judged me and has listened to my plea and given me a son, and because of this, she named him Dan, which is a form of the word for judgment. Dan means judgment. Okay. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. And then Rachel said, I've had a great struggle with my sister, and I have won, and she named him Naphtali. Okay, so Naphtali, it means struggle, and that's exactly who Jacob is. He's the struggler. He's the wrestler. She's doing like her husband. And this is not good. And these sons are being conceived. Not saying God can't use them. He's using me. And I guarantee you I've got some stuff in my background like that. Maybe worse. But still sins are visited to the third and fourth generation and then visited again if it's extended on down. Try to understand what I'm saying. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her maidservant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife, and Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, how lucky. Well, what good fortune. And so she named him Gad. Now think about this. These ladies' theology ain't too good. By the way, let me back up here. I skipped right over something. Rewind. Rewind. When Dan is conceived, she says, God has vindicated me. What she said was, Elohim has vindicated me. She is a worshiper of Teraphim. Who is she thinking has given her this child? If she's thinking of the God of heaven, she's wrong. If she's thinking of this devil God, she's wrong. But still, think about this. She worships Teraphim, which are called Elohim, called gods, by her father, by everybody. Think about that. Almost ran by that one. Excuse me. Okay, verse 12. Leah's stuff's pretty fresh. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah said, how happy I am. The women will call me happy. So she named him Asher. See, with these ladies, status among the ladies is about fertility, 100%. It's when they're ashamed because they're barren, it's really more than anything else, it's shame among the women. It's about status. During wheat harvest, this is so interesting. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, which he brought to his mother Leah. And Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your mandrakes. But she said to her, wasn't it enough? It sounds like two sister wives. bickering at each other. Wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take away my son's mandrakes too? Very well, Rachel said, he can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes. Okay, so the mandrakes were considered, they had no concept of pharmacology. The mandrakes, as I understand it, were possibly shaped like, maybe like ginseng, where there's a trunk and it looks like there's limbs, and they look like a human form and a small. And so if you eat something that's in the shape of a human, you wind up with a human in your belly. And that's how you can see. Remember, these people didn't even know about the circulatory system. They did not have a clue about the circulatory system, how the heart pumps blood through the body. Their understanding was really primitive. So anyway, but it's for her, it's like a witchcraft thing. I can do this thing, and I can manipulate, and I can finally get a baby coming out of my own womb. She's acting like she's had a victory with these surrogate sons, but really in her heart, she hadn't had one herself, and she really is not happy. She knows she's prophesied falsely that no God, the God of heaven or the God of Teraphim, has really done for her what she wants. So she's eager to try to conceive herself, and she trades intimacy with the bridegroom for witchcraft. And if you think about it, that's a picture there. We need to choose intimacy with God, Jesus Christ, the bridegroom, over our own manipulation and control. That's a good word. So her sister agrees, I'll take intimacy with the bridegroom, and you can have these mandrakes. So when Jacob, think about this. So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. You must sleep with me, she said, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah. Get that. You don't see her praying. You don't see her down on her knees going, oh, Jehovah, grant me another child. But it says that God listened to her. Okay, this is talking about the God of the Bible. We know this. He listened to this move towards intimacy, this baby step of moving towards intimacy and rejecting witchcraft. Because look, that's the only prayer that's prayed. And think about this. So this conception comes from God all the way. It's not being done by the manipulation. It's being done. God does this in a full sense of the word. Okay, God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, God has rewarded me for giving my maidservant to my husband. So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And then Leah said, God has presented me with a precious gift. But get this, even she doesn't understand what's going on. Get this. This time my husband will treat me with honor. Oh, excuse me. I run right past it again. Back up to verse 18. After Issachar is born, Leah said, God has rewarded me for giving my maidservant to her husband. Wrong. She was not being rewarded for giving her Zilpah to Jacob. She's being rewarded because of what just happened. Because it says God listened to her. What's he listening to? He's listening to her moving towards intimacy with the bridegroom and away from witchcraft. It's not because something she did a year or two before with her maidservant. But again, it's a false prophecy. It's looking at the circumstances and knowing what you want. And I got this. Well, God did this because of this. We need to understand where stuff comes from and how it got there and what God's doing. Excuse me for jumping around here so much. Okay, so Zebulon is conceived. She got the 6 sons. Verse 21, sometime later she gave birth to a daughter, named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel and listened to her and opened her womb. So God opens her womb. This is not about, this is sometime later. I'm glad it said sometime later. This has nothing to do. This is independent after the mandrakes are done. Whatever she did with them, they're done gone. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. And she named him Joseph. Does she mean, when she says Elohim, does she mean Teraphim or does she mean Jehovah? It's interesting. It's an open question. But notice she says, before Joseph is conceived, she says, give me a child or I die. She wants a child more than she wants a life, more than she wants God for sure. And here, now that she's been given a son, maybe she thinks she got it because of her mandrakes or her teraphim or whatever. She's manipulating. Thing about worshiping idols, it's a laborious thing. You know, you offer sacrifices, you do this, you do this, you do this, and you got to get it just right to crank up your idol. But whatever, she says, now give me another one. There is no thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. This is just, I'm in a race. I've got one actual blood son. Now, and Leah's had 6 and a daughter. So she says, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph. May the Lord add to me another son. And so she's focusing on that. Now that we've seen this, what I'm saying is, with Dan is the first one conceived as a surrogate. And it was the same thing as with Hagar and Ishmael, and God blessed Ishmael. And yet Ishmael also brought great trouble. And so we see this here with the conception of Dan. And so when Dan is still a man, he's got children, but when he's an adult man, his father is an old man, the prophecy is already in place of the path that his tribe will take. Now, turn with me over to Judges chapter 13. Judges chapter 13. Okay. All right. So let me try to summarize, because I'm covering so much territory here about the birth of Samson. Samson's mother is out working in a field. She's sterile, she's childless. And the messenger of the Lord, the angel of the Lord, or the messenger of the Lord, which is probably the Lord Jesus, appears to her, not to her husband, and says, you're going to have a son, you're going to conceive. He's going to be a Nazarite from birth. No grape stuff, no touching dead stuff. No, don't cut his hair. And so the wife goes to her husband, who is somewhere apparently sitting down, if you read carefully. And so his name is Manoah, and he prays, oh Lord, come back, let this person come back. He thinks it's a man. And give us some more information. So God hears Manoah, and the angel of God, or the messenger of God, comes back to her again. And this is while she is out in the field. This is in verse 9. But her husband Manoah was not with her. Where is he? The woman hurried to tell her husband, he's here, the man who appeared to me the other day. Manoah got up and followed his wife. I don't know. The Lord has come to this woman twice, and her husband has to get up, and she's out in the field. I'm not sure what all's going on here, but the angel did not, or the messenger did not come to the husband first, although he did get his prayers answered. I think there's a little bit of a passive father going on here. So they offer an offering, and they realize that this is a divine being. And by the way, they ask his name, and he says, my name, King James says, my name is wonderful. NIV says beyond understanding. The word is Pele, and it's a form of the same word, you know, in Isaiah 9:6, where it refers to the Christmas passage. Wonderful counselor, everlasting Father. Mighty God, Prince of Peace. But that wonderful counselor right there, that wonderful is the same word. Wonderful, Pele, or Pele, different forms of that same word. It means beyond the ability to apprehend, really. It's my definition. And that's who the Lord Jesus is. He is beyond our ability to apprehend. Okay, so he's conceived here. And here again, this is going to challenge your understanding of the sovereignty of God and the free will of man. Samson says to his mom and dad, hey, I saw a Philistine girl I like. I want to get engaged to her. And they're saying that not an uncircumcised Philistine. This is not good. This is terrible. And it says they didn't realize that the Lord was seeking for an occasion to confront the Philistines. Well, look, I promise you, if he had been wanting to do something righteous, God would have been seeking an occasion, and he would have found that other one. Now, he foreknew this, and he's in this, but it's still sin for him to want to go marry a Philistine, especially a Philistine, uncircumcised Philistine. Terrible bloodline. And but he's on his way down to try to arrange for the engagement. He and his father and mother, and they're not really all three walking together or something. And a lion runs out from a vineyard. He shouldn't be near a vineyard. He shouldn't be near grapes. Runs out from this vineyard, and he tears it in half. The Spirit of the Lord comes on him, and he tears it in half. And so it's like, it doesn't matter to God that I'm going to go down here and arrange to marry an uncircumcised Philistine. That's what it looks like. God has anointed him to tear a lion in half. And he doesn't even tell his parents. Why? Interesting question. So he goes on down to the Philistine place, and she arranges for this engagement, which means they're going to have a 7-day drinking party. The Philistines were really into the wine. This is in southwest of the northern Israel. This is in the west over there on the coast. And there's lots and lots of grapevines, lots and lots of wine. And he is probably drunk when he says to the 30 guys that are his attendants, Philistine attendants, he says to them, hey, riddle my riddle, and if you can riddle my riddle, I'll give you 30 sets of clothing. And if you can't, you give me 30 sets of clothing. Well, why would they even agree to this? This riddle is totally impossible. He says, out of the eater, something to eat, out of the strong, something sweet. There's no way that you're going to figure that out. It's certainly not that he killed a lion and bees built a nest in its carcass, and he ate out of it. Gross. But they know that they're going to have to pay up, but I have a sense that they're all high. They're all drunk. And they're saying, we're going to have to cough this up at the end of the 7 days, these 30 sets of clothing. So they go to his fiance, and they say, we're going to kill you and your whole family if you don't find out the answer to this riddle and save us this money, this embarrassment. Well, she nags him. She finally gets the answer. And so they're able to riddle the riddle. Well, then he kills 30 Philistines in Ashkelon, gets their clothing and pays the debt. And then they get mad, and there's a war back and forth. And they wind up killing his wife. And the war goes, this is a mess that is started with him trying to marry a Philistine. By the way, he's not supposed to touch anything dead, let alone eat honey out of the carcass of a lion. Gross. He gave it to his parents, and he didn't tell them where it come from. Well, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want to eat any. So anyway, the Spirit of the Lord is on him in power, and he's not walking in holiness. They get more and more fights. Then the Philistines act like they're going to attack the folks in Judah, and they say, why? And they say, because you got Samson's stirring things up here, and we're going to fight all of Judah. Well, the folks from Judah, I believe it's 3,000 of them, come down to Samson and say, hey, you're making trouble. We're submissive to the Philistines. And he says, don't kill me. You can tie me up and turn me over to him. Well, he's already figured out that God's in this. They tie him up, and when he approaches the Philistines, it's not even that he has to break it. It's like it turns into like charred flax, the ropes do. And he grabs a juicy, if you notice it says a fresh jawbone of a donkey. What it's saying, the word there is for juicy. He got a jawbone from a fresh carcass, still flies on it. I'm sure it's still juicy. Look, he's not supposed to touch anything dead, and God's anoints him. He's like he turns into Superman, where he kills 1,000 Philistines without one of them getting a spear into him. It's like he turns into a weed eater, with a jawbone in his hand, but it's a sticky, slimy, stinking thing. And when he gets done killing them, it says he throws it down. No wonder. It would have stunk. It would have been awful. It's a fresh jawbone. It's the word for juicy. And he makes a poem again, and he's mocking them about how this can be translated a couple of ways. With a donkey's jawbone, I've made donkeys of them, which is kind of sad because in the end, they make a donkey of him, a beast of burden. And then he's really thirsty. Now think about this. He's really thirsty. He's out of the will of God by using a rotten piece of a donkey and eating out of a rotten lion carcass. He's not supposed to touch anything dead. And he's real thirsty, and he cries out to God, hey, I'm so thirsty, I'm going to die. I'm going to die, and these Philistines are going to kill me. And God opens up water, and it comes out of a rock. What does that remind you of? Did somebody say something about the hardening of the blessing a while ago? And the ultimate hardening, David said that they would never get over, was the hardening at Massa Meribah. David said in Psalm 95 that after Massa Meribah, when the river of water opened up and came out of the rock, they'll never enter my rest. So it was toast for them there. And it's like he prays water out of a rock. I mean, that's even bigger miracle than turning into Superman, I guess. So next, he's got this thing going on with Delilah. She's a Philistine, or she's living among the Philistines. Probably is a Philistine. They offer her 1,100 shekels to betray him. And so, excuse me just a second here. Okay. Okay, before Delilah, he spends the night with a prostitute, chapter 16, verse 1. He comes out early. The Philistines are waiting to kill him, but he grabs the gate and picks it up. Maybe he's using it as a shield. But this gate's something, weighs for tons. He carries it miles and lays it down. He's turned into Superman, and he's coming out of the house of a prostitute. Then he gets the thing going with Delilah. Well, she plans to betray him for 1,100 shekels of silver right away. And you know the story. Eventually, he tells, I think it's the fourth time, he lied to her. Think about it. He's lying, which is a sin in itself, but he's lying to her to keep her, and she's a Philistine, and he ought to be halfway. In any sense, she's trying to betray him. But anyway, these women are able to wrap good old strong Samson around their fingers, both the first girl and Delilah too. And so this guy who has been hardened, think about it. Pharaoh was hardened and hardened and hardened because God answered his prayers and took away plagues. Now Samson is getting prayers, even unprayed prayers, answered in a dramatic way. And all of a sudden, it's like he's in the Red Sea. He finally tells, he's already violated the thing about drinking wine. You can trust that's the case with this Philistine party. And certainly, touching dead stuff, left and right. But there's still the one other thing that he hadn't violated, and that's cutting his hair. When he finally concedes that, his strength is gone, and he rises up and he shakes himself, and he don't realize that the Lord has departed from him. And it's like all of a sudden, Pharaoh thinks he can control God because he has 9 times before, 10 times before, 9 times before. And he's here between 2 walls of water, and he's pretty sure that he's got the control of Jehovah. It's about controlling God, and that's trying to control God, and that's witchcraft, and it always bites you. Okay, so he winds up in that same situation. Do you understand that he was conceived, and his mother said, God, or a God, or this false God, or whoever's in charge has given me this child? Well, yes, God did give you the child, but it's not like you're thinking, Rachel, Raquel. There's a hardening of blessing thing. And so Samson has got himself bound and blind. And God, again, he will use anything. And he used the bound blind man to bring down the temple of Dagon. And it's sad. But there's something here a little bit more that I want to see. Boy, time has passed. Bear with me. And he dies at the end of chapter 16 of Judges. In chapter 17, there is a man named Micah who has a mother who has 1,100 shekels of silver. I think that this Micah is the son of Samson, and that the woman, his mother, with 1,100 shekels of silver. What an odd number in a consecutive chapter. That's Delilah. It's not telling us. But if that's true, then Micah would be considered a Danite. And he makes an idol out of this 1,100 shekels of silver. Has got a curse on it. His mother cursed it, but it's already cursed. But he makes an idol which is also cursed. And it sets up the idol in his home, and a traveling Levite comes through that's unemployed, and he hires the Levite 10 shekels and a shirt and his food to live and be his priest. So he hires this Levite, a hireling. God, what a mess. What a mess. And he hires this Levite to be his priest. By the way, we find out later, the Levite's name is Jonathan, and he's descended, of all things, he's descended from Moses. All right. So this is a Danite with an idol, and a Levite that's supposed to be worshiping Jehovah, but he's ministering and probably calling it God, the God of Israel, but this is an idol. When the Danites are over in the west side on the Mediterranean coast, that's their territory. And they have not been able to take their land away from the Philistines. The Philistines are there. 5 Philistine cities are there. And they've not been able to take them take their territory. You can blame the other tribes for not helping them. I don't know if that was the case or not. But in any case, they couldn't take their territory, and they decided to send a delegation up to the northern part of Israel, outside of Israelite territory, and go up there and spy out a place and find a place where it's a good place and where people are not military and we can slaughter them and they don't have any allies. And so they send a delegation, I believe it's 600, it's 400 or 600 Danites go up there to find it, try to find this place. And as they're going by, they hear the Levite inside Micah's house. He's probably singing a hymn or something, singing a psalm or something. But they recognize him as a Levite, and they go in and they say, "Inquire of the Lord for us," or "Inquire of God for us." Chapter 18, verse 5. They said to him, "Please inquire of God to learn whether our journey will be successful." All right, get this. These Danites are asking a Levite that's working for a Danite, son of Samson probably, to inquire of the God, Elohim, see if our journey will be successful. And he speaks to them and says, God says, you're blessed, your trip is blessed. And that's a lie. Their trip was going to be successful. They went up there and they found a perfect place, beautiful place, good land, good houses and stuff, and weak people that didn't have any allies. And so they go back home and they get up their whole army. They says, let's go up there and attack them. Now, wait a minute. This time it was just 5 people on the trip. Later, it's 400 and 600. But there's 5 people that stopped and asked the Levite, will our trip be successful? And he says, yes, it will. Well, it was successful in that they took the territory, but that was not God. This is just like this other story. Yes, they're the tribe of Dan. Yes, they're from Israel. But this is an ungodly action to go up here and slaughter these innocent people and take their territory. They did not have a command of God to go in and take territory from ungodly Amorites that were sacrificing children and walking in extreme sexual perversion, like Moses had given the command when they came in and were given Israel. This is different. This is different. They slaughtered these people. And this guy prophesied to them. And it's just like the prophecy that his mother speaks, that God has given me this son. No, in God's sovereignty, yes, she's been given. But you're out of the will of God to do this, Raquel. And these Danites are out of the will of God, and it is a cursed place. And this Dan up there becomes one of the 2 places Jeroboam sets up the idol. And the Danites have a really, really dark history. And this has to do with hardening a blessing. It has to do with the judgment of God. It has to do with God's blessing is his judgment. God blessing us when we're totally out of his will, even to the conception of children. Think about it. Meditate on these things. Surely you understand that there are children conceived by rape that God loves and he's blessed and he's used, but still, that was a sin. Lord, we love you. We understand more than we did. We ask you to continue to teach us. We praise you and we bless you. In Jesus' name, amen.